So, the Biology Society welcomes you to their first webinar on the topic Sustainable Alternatives to Traditional Meat. I'll walk you about how the session is going to go. We'll be starting with the webinar now, and we can have a Q&A round after the talk. So, you all can note down your questions. And as this is a virtual setting, and I cannot see all your lovely faces, so maybe at halftime we can have a group photo to break the monotony. Mr. Parth Sarthi Singh will be conducting the webinar for us. He's about to complete his post-graduation in biotech from Thapar University, Patiala. He has an interest in data science and machine learning and cultured meat as well, which is why we are having this webinar. He has worked as a research intern at IIT Roorkee with a research paper in pipeline. He is also a published author and has a self-published book. So let's welcome him on our virtual stage.
Thanks for the lovely welcome, Niharika. Shall I start now?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. So today's talk is about sustainable alternatives to traditional meat. So I'm going to be going over why we need alternatives to meat in the first place, how the meat industry is harmful for the environment, what are the challenges these alternatives face, and other things. So before we begin anything, let's quickly go over a history of meat. Why is this thing not working? Okay, so the systematic meat production and animal breeding for the same dates back to around 10,000 BCE. Back then, early man was a hunter-gatherer and hunted animals for food. Then, first of all, sheep were domesticated as early as the 8th millennium BCE, cattle in 5000 BCE, but beef cattle domestication began only in the mid 18th century. Uh, However, pork sausages were of great commercial importance in Greco-Roman times, and horses were hunted for meat during the Paleolithic era, and to date remain a delicacy in certain parts of the world. In fact, here's a fun fact: the Ashwamedha Yajna, which you are so familiar with, basically was for consumption of horse meat. I'm not going to say anything else because otherwise the video might get demonetized. All right, so next. The founders of Western philosophy differed with respect to their thoughts on meat. Plato's Republic has Socrates describing the ideal state as vegetarian. Pythagoras and Plutarch believed that humans and animals are equal and therefore they disapproved of meat eating. But Zeno and Epicurus, though vegetarian, allowed meat eating in their philosophy. Aristotle, this guy comes up a lot, by the way, in biology also. Aristotle, in his treatise Politics, asserted that animals are inferior beings. And the philosopher Augustine drew on Aristotle to argue that the universe's natural hierarchy allows humans to eat animals and animals to eat plants. So he was the first guy to give the concept of the food chain. So Descartes and Kant believe animals to be merely animated machines and inferior beings because they lack discernment. One moment. Rousseau argued that meat eating is a social rather than a natural act. He argued that children are not interested in meat, which is, by the way, a very flawed argument because everything that we do, we learn from our parents. So, really, if you say that eating meat is a learned behavior, then everything else that we do, we love, we read, anything that we do is learned behavior. Now, modern eaters discern between animals and their meat and were disgusted by the prospect of eating animals whole. For example, in early days, people used to eat every part of the animal, including the head, tail, and the unmentionables. But as time went on, this became less prevalent. According to Ferdinand Brodel, European colonialism helped export meat eating across the globe. Now, for most of human history, meat was an unquestioned part of the diet, but in the 20th century, it became a topic of discourse and contention. So that's where the first modern vegans stem from. Now, the environmental impact of meat. There are concerns over overgrazing and substantial land use when it comes to meat production. 60 times more water is required for meat production than for irrigation. So just think about that for a moment. The plants that you grow, even the food crops, they take up 60 times less water than meat. Livestock grazing has in turn resulted in leaching of phosphates and nitrates into aquatic ecosystems and has also reduced dissolved oxygen in these environments, increased temperature and turbidity, as well as eutrophication events. So, overall, bad for the marine environment. Agriculture accounts for 14.5% of all anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. So, just that's something to keep in mind. All man made greenhouse gas emissions, 14.5% of that is agriculture, which also includes the meat industry. It has also resulted in air pollution and increased energy use. So now the need for traditional meat alternatives. Although the environmental impacts of meat production are undeniable, animal protein is still very much needed. This is a hill that I'm willing to die on. I'm gonna, if anyone wants to debate this with me, you can debate at the end of the webinar. I'm going to stand by my view. The world population is growing steadily and it is estimated to reach 10.87 billion people by 2100. As the number of people on the planet increases, so will the demand for meat. And this will all affect population dense countries like India the worst. Now, this is a population growth curve that I got from the internet, courtesy Our World in Data. So, as you can see, just one moment. As you can see right here at this point, it's less than 11 billion, but it's more than 10 billion. It's precisely 10.89 billion. Okay, so what is the solution to all these problems? Well, this webinar will answer all of that. So the alternatives to traditional meat are primarily of two types. The first is in vitro or cultured meat, which is my personal favorite as a subject of study. And the second is plant-based meat. So what is the main difference between these two? Well, in vitro meat is produced from stem cells, whereas plant-based meat is made using heme from plants as well as other plant-based materials. In vitro meat can be produced from a single biopsy from a living animal. You do not need to kill any animal for that. You can just, grab some adult stem cells from an animal and basically you can, it's stonks. um, Plant-based meat can be produced without involving animals. So by that logic, in vitro meat contains animal proteins. Plant-based meat does not contain animal proteins. Now, in vitro meat can be precisely organoleptically adjusted to taste like the real thing. And plant-based meat, while it comes very close to the real thing, it does not have the same nutritional value. Now, for plant-based meats, get ready for the big players in this arena. So the first is Beyond Meat, and as you can see, it is a publicly trading company, which is trading currently on the Nasdaq stock market with the symbol BYND. So for those interested in stocks, you can probably invest in Beyond. Now, Beyond Meat, an overview of Beyond Meat. So LA-based producer of it is a LA-based producer of plant-based meat substitutes. Since these cannot be legally called meat in many states in the United States, and I will getting back to this point later on in the presentation. Beyond Meat was founded by Ethan Brown in 2009, but its products were first publicly available in 2012, and it was named the Company of the Year 2013 by People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA. You know those guys, hypocrites of the highest order. Anyway, their products are available in more than 6,000 stores across the US. Some major collaborations: Beyond Fried Chicken. This started in four major states in the United States, or four major cities, I think. And it's plant-based meat that tastes like KFC. It comes in four variants. So there's the unflavored variant, there's a barbecue, and there's the other flavors that I don't know. People who have tasted it, both meat eaters and people who are vegans, they say that it tastes really close to the real thing. So this image was brought to you by Business Insider. Come on. Okay. The second major collaboration with Dunkin' Donuts, the Beyond Sausage Breakfast Sandwich. It looks appetizing. It looks just like a real breakfast sausage sandwich, but it's not a real breakfast sausage sandwich, although it tastes the same. Then with Del Taco. So first they brought their Beyond Tacos, and then they slowly rolled out more products like the Beyond, what was it called? It was the, I think it was the Beyond Burrito and other products. So those are pretty interesting, and I would love to eat them if I go to the United States. Now, Impossible Foods. You might have heard of these guys. So Impossible Foods was founded by Patrick O. Brown in 2011. And unlike Beyond Meat, it is a private company, so you cannot invest in Impossible Foods. Its signature product, the Impossible Burger, was launched in 2016 after years of research and development. It has collaborations with major industry players such as Burger King and Starbucks. In 2019, Little Caesars began testing the Impossible Supreme Pizza in Florida, New Mexico, and Washington. And more recently, they unveiled a prototype called Impossible Pork at the Consumer Electronics Show 2020. So some of the major collaborations: the Impossible Whopper. You must have heard of this one. It tastes just like a real hamburger. The tagline is 100% Whopper, 0% beef. The problem with this thing is, though, that there was a huge outrage over this because people were saying that it's not exactly 100% vegan because it's cooked on those same grills which are used to cook actual hamburgers. So that put off a lot of people. But for people who are meat eaters who were looking for an alternative to meat, they were okay with it pretty much. And this image was brought to you by Burger King and TechCrunch. Next, Jaden Smith's Impossible Trio, the Impossible Sliders. So this was a collaboration with Umami Burger, and as you can see, this image was brought to you by Uber Eats. Now, how can we let this slide without mentioning Indian brands? An honorable mention goes out to Good Dot. It is an Indian brand which have a restaurant called Guddu, named after a goat named Guddu, rescued from a butcher shop. Now, I would say, why would they do that? Like, why would you? I get you're a vegan, but why would you rescue a goat from a butcher shop? That's like, I don't know. That's messed up. Anyway, so they have nabbed the PETA award for being tasty and affordable, but have been critically panned by most meat eaters. If you take a look at the Amazon reviews, they basically say that it's just glorified, uh, overpriced soy chop. It's loved by vegans and is a good start for the domestic mock meat market. And major collaborations include a tie-up with a Thai company for the vegan Thai curry, the Thai green curry. Okay. Now, cultured meat and in vitro meat. These are the two revolutionaries, the big companies involved. So first of all, Aleph Farms, which is this logo. This is not the original logo. As you can see, the farms portion here. This I actually modified it to be better visible because the original logo, when I imported it into PowerPoint, it was not showing up properly. So I had to tweak the colors a little bit. Okay, that out of the way. Aleph Farms is headquartered at Rehovot, Israel. It's co-founded by the Technion Israel Institute of Technology and Israeli food tech startup, the Kitchen of Straws Group Limited. It grows meat cuts from beef cells using a 3D tissue engineered platform, and they did a very successful experiment of 3D bioprinting beef steaks on the International Space Station in microgravity. So away from human civilization, away from everything that makes planet Earth, they grew this in space. They actually made this in space. Now they aim to launch their pilot plant in 2021, and they aim to enter the market in 2023. And I am sure they're going to completely revolutionize the meat industry. As of 2019, though, their steak costs around $3,000 per kilogram, so it is pretty expensive. Cultured beef in India, when I'm kidding. And this is an early prototype of Aleph Farms cultured beef steak. It looks pretty appetizing, and I'm sure it tastes just like the real thing. Now, Eat Just Inc., or simply known as Just. So it is a company with a very interesting history. It was formerly known as Hampton Creek Foods Inc. It produces primarily plant-based foods sold internationally, but it doesn't seem to have a presence in India right now. It was founded in 2011 by Josh Bock and CEO Josh Derrick, and it has been embroiled in quite a few controversies. So 50 euros per nugget is the price they claim to have for the chicken nuggets as of January 2020. Their first prototype was unveiled in 2017 and have been constructing a pilot plant in at least mid 2019. They are at the certification phase as of January 2020. Okay, Integriculture Inc. I took the liberty of modifying this logo as well because the available one was very low resolution. But I'm not going to mention that from now on when such a thing comes up. So it is a slightly different company from the previous mentioned companies because it's a Japanese company, and it was founded on October 23rd, 2015 by Yuki Hanyu as a spin-off of the publicly funded Shojin Meat Project. Among other cultured meat, it aims to make foie gras. Now, foie gras is very different from all the other products that the previous companies are focused on. So foie gras is basically, it has a texture like mashed potato. Yeah, foie gras. It has a texture like mashed potato. So it is pretty different from real, actually conventional meat. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Integriculture plans on entering the market by 2021, and the initial claim is 20,000 yen for their foie gras product. Okay, now Mosa Meat. This is another Israeli company. Not Israeli. Israeli? Oh yeah, sorry. It is a Dutch company. Mosa Meat is a Dutch company, a food technology company headquartered in Maastricht. and it was founded by Mark Post and Peter Verstraete. Mark Post is a professor at the Maastricht University, by the way. It developed the world's first cultured meat hamburger in 2013, which costed a whopping $325,000 to produce, and it was funded by Google co-founder Sergey Brin. It aims to bring down the cost to 60 euros sometime this year. So hopefully by the end of the year, if the pandemic, boils, if it gets a bit less, the pandemic thing, and they aim to enter the market by 2022. Now, an honorable mention goes out to Shiok Meats. I saw a video about them recently on YouTube, and I was very excited for their product. So it was founded by an Indian Sandhya Sriram and her partner Dr. Kei Ling in 2019. Shiok means fantastic in Singapore and Malay slang. It aims to produce cell-based crustacean meats, and the current focus is on shrimp for their suma. Now, here's how it's made. It's a comparison with the greenhouse. So they start off with a small sample of shrimp cells. The cells are grown in a nutrient-rich environment, and then basically when you have the cells that have been grown into a, when they have been assembled the correct way, then they are put into these dumpling things called suma. So yeah. Okay. Now, an honorable mention also goes out to KFC. You previously heard about KFC, that they were collaborating with Beyond Meat for the Beyond Fried Chicken, but they have also collaborated with 3D Bioprinting Solutions, which is a Russian company, to bioprint chicken nuggets. Now, the reaction to this was very mixed from the public. So only about 13% of people said that they would eat a lab cultured chicken nugget that KFC brought out, whereas more than 80-90% people said that they would avoid it. And it's going to be ready for beta testing by fall 2020. Could be expanded to more markets internationally. So India might. Okay, how do you bioprint cells? Well, that is an interesting question. Yeah, muscle cells are bioprinted because the muscle cells basically they come from adult stem cells, right? So I'm not aware of the whole process, but that's how it's done, I think. Okay, now another honorable mention goes out to Dr. Biman B. Mandal and team. So Biman B. Mandal is a professor at IIT Guwahati, and he patented the method to create meat of 100 chickens from a single biopsy from a single chicken. This meat can be biofortified. So if, for example, in areas where there's a lack of nutrition, there's malnutrition, then you can basically biofortify the meat according to your needs, according to the people's needs, according to what they need. All right, for the micronutrients, because it already has protein, but it can be fortified with other nutrients like iron, manganese, no, not manganese. Okay, so now we're going to compare plant-based meat with traditional meat. Does it taste that good? Is it good for the environment? Let's find out. Okay, so this is the land used to produce 1 kilogram of protein. So right off the bat, you can see that the lowest land footprint is taken up by Beyond Meat at just 3.5 meters square for 1 kilogram of protein, whereas beef takes up a whopping 192 meters square. That is just from a single cow. And now the water use. This is important. So this is a very realistic figure. As you can see, there's not much difference between beef and the Impossible Burger when it comes to water use, but in practice, the water use is very less when you consider all the other ingredients and everything, the whole procedure, the whole pipeline, not just growing the cow and growing the cells. When you consider the whole pipeline, then it comes out to be substantially less. Now, plant-based meat versus traditional meat in greenhouse gas emissions. So 90% less greenhouse gas emissions come from plant-based meat compared to traditional meat. Now, so basically to summarize, the Beyond Burger and the Beef Burger. The Beyond Burger consumes 99% less water than the Beef Burger, 93% less land, 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and 46% less energy. So to summarize, it looks like the real thing, it tastes like the real thing or not, depending on the brand. So Good Dot does not taste like the real thing. I haven't had it, but I've seen the reviews, they were horrible. It smells just like the real thing. It is just as good as bad or bad for you as the real thing. And moreover, it is great for the environment. So why are we not funding this? Well, I just said you can fund this. You can actually invest in Beyond Meat, but that's a discussion for another meeting. Now, cultured meat versus traditional meat. Big Chungus Juggernaut versus the new kid on the block. So to summarize, as you can see, the energy use goes over the roof for cultured meat. It's even more than beef. However, the greenhouse gas emissions are the least, and land use is also the least. The water used for cultured meat is slightly greater than that of poultry, so chicken, turkey, etc. But it is substantially less than sheep, pork, beef. All those other meats that people eat in first world countries. Sad reacts only. Okay, now the major problems faced by meat alternatives. So the main bottlenecks preventing them from becoming mainstream. So first of all, the biggest bottleneck is probably is that it requires growth factor. Cultured meat requires growth factors. Niharika, you just take a look at the time. So I'm not sure what slide I am on right now. So when the half time is, just notify me. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
all right.
okay. So probably the biggest bottleneck to cultured or in vitro meat production and mainstream adoption is the requirement for growth factors. Currently, fetal bovine serum albumin is required for producing cultured meat. This means that the meat is not 100% cruelty free. However, scores of companies are currently working on solving this problem by creating synthetic growth factors that do not need to rely on animals. Now, the other major bottleneck is the factor. Like people, they just don't want to eat meat grown in a lab, despite mass-produced food being formulated in a lab once upon a time. So you can see where the hypocrisy comes in. Like when I talk to my friends about eating meat grown in a lab, chicken meat or any exotic meat like say cheetah meat or ocelot meat, they're disgusted by the prospect, but not me. So this is because they misunderstand cultured meat and are disgusted by it even if they have never tasted it in their life. There is stiff opposition from factory farmers and traditional meat advocates, and it is illegal in certain states in the United States to call cultured meat meat. So they have to use some other term like uh, lab grown protein or something like that. You have to get around that. It, there's legislation for that in place to prevent them from calling it meat. Okay. Now, organoleptically, cultured meat isn't quite there yet. It's sort of there, but it's not quite there yet. Even though the price has decreased exponentially over the years, there has been a quantum leap in the decrease in the price. Now, plant-based meat isn't mainstream in international markets like India due to the unavailability of high-quality mock meat. So right now we only have Good Dot and a handful of other companies which I have not mentioned because they're not as popular, and also due to social political reasons. Now I'm going to be expanding on this a bit. Most Indians are unwilling to try something that tastes like beef, even if it does not contain even an ounce of cow muscle fibers due to obvious reasons. Uh, People from Kerala, please ignore this if you joined. Otherwise, I mean, the rest of India, people simply refuse to eat something like that. Now, vegans are mocked in many countries, even more so because of their animal rescue antiques, which is true to some extent. I mean, I don't agree with the sentiment of animal rescue, to be honest. Plant-based meats are seen as basically vegetarian food items, or as we call them in India, ghas poos. With homegrown brands like Good Dot that are basically uh, glorified, overpriced soy chop, most Indians aren't spoiled for choice either. The ingredients that can be used to make an impossible burger spaghetti at home are extremely difficult to find in certain countries, so you won't find those ingredients in India, and include such things as shiitake mushrooms. Nevertheless, the future is bright for meat alternatives now more than ever. And now for something fun, it's a thought experiment, or should we say just an experiment? Okay, so there's this website called Bistro in Vitro, which is a fictitious restaurant. You can make reservations by creating your menu of one starter, one main course, and one dessert from the options. It is a fun thought experiment which might become a reality 10 years hence. So maybe 10 years later, you will be like, okay, this restaurant actually exists. But for now, it's just a concept. So after this webinar, open the website at your own home and create your own menu. And this is purely optional if you can afford it. I can't, so I'm not going to buy it. But if you can afford it, you can also buy the in vitro meat cookbook, and the possibilities are endless. So basically, this is my menu: crane origami, meat magic meatballs, and celebrity cubes. So celebrity cubes is basically the meat of celebrities, human celebrities, dunked in a whiskey glaze. And personally, if I had to choose, I would probably choose a meat from Miranda Cosgrove, Chris Evans, and Ezra Miller. Don't ask me why. Thank you. Now, floor is now open to questions. That's it, guys. Chat में लिख
You
दो
all
questions या
can
फिर
raise your hands if you want to
yeah, you can
like
use the
ask
raise hand
your
feature.
question vocally. Yeah, so you raise your hands and I'll unmute you, or else you can type your questions in the chat box also.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know that this a major part of this discussion was because of the population prediction for 2100 of close to 11 billion. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, how are we going to make people adapt to this? As in, a lot more people are taking up non-vegetarian food diets, especially in India, and they were already non-vegetarian in China earlier. So the main population increase is happening in India.
Yeah,
And
that is
isn't it
that is a very
better to just make people take a vegetarian diets and carry out local farming instead of investing what
that would
you
actually be
mentioned, three
that would be
hundred
ideal.
thirty thousand dollars on a single burger?
Yeah, that would be ideal if people turn vegetarian. However, you know that that's not going to happen. Now, in this is now I'm going to be turning the focus away from third world countries for a minute to look at countries like the US. So in the US, a lot of people are vegan, a lot of people are vegetarian. They're turning away from meat. People who used to eat meat, they're turning away from meat, and even people who now no longer eat meat, they get their meat fixed from things like the Impossible Burger or the Beyond Meat Burger, or they actually prepare meat at home using these products, the Impossible products, the Beyond products. Okay, now if we could have quality products like those which were made from plants in India or other third world countries, then pretty much I think that would solve the problem, because mostly people in India, they are, I mean, there's two kinds of people who eat meat in India. There's people who actually care about the aesthetics of eating meat, and then there's people who just eat for the taste. Now, the majority of the people would not care about the aesthetics of eating meat. Like, if you ask a normal person, do you eat the bone of your chicken drumstick? They're gonna say no, right? So people, as long as they have something that tastes like meat, if whether it's in vitro meat, whether it's plant-based meat, which is by the way a lot cheaper, which is a lot cheaper to produce as well, so they will have a lot of options. And I'm optimistic that since KFC is testing out their Beyond Fried Chicken in the US, they've done it in 4 cities for now, and I'm optimistic that they'll expand something like that to India as well, and major companies will pick this up. In fact, as I mentioned, there's companies in India already, not on plant-based meat, but on in vitro meat. So I mentioned Dr. Biman Mandal's team. They've actually got a patent for that, for their chicken meat from a single chicken.
How are we
Does that
going to
answer?
cut down on religious consumption of meat, which will not find an alternative? As in, you will not have a Bakri Eid with someone,
Yeah, that is actually a very major concern, because when I was watching a video about in vitro meat, right? I think I'm not sure it was in vitro meat. Yeah, it was in vitro meat. Okay, so the majority of the comments were from people of a certain religion asking if the meat was prepared according to their religious standards. Now, अब तुम समझ जाओ मैं कौन सा religion की बात कर रहा हूँ. Don't mention it because the video will probably get demonetized जो YouTube पे जाएगी. So yeah, that was a bit disturbing to me, because people still care about things like this. I mean, this okay. First of all, it I mean, it does conform to these standards, even if if it's you're not strictly not killing an animal. So okay, one of the standards might be violated, but it's clean meat. It's you're not killing anyone for it. It's good for the environment. It's I mean, it's overall it's superior. Like 100 years ago, right? People used to have less cars. Okay, people used to travel by horses. Now cars are more common than horses. Now only the rich people have horses, right? So we've seen a paradigm shift. So the industrial revolution brought that on. There was an agricultural revolution. Now I am confident that another revolution will occur in the meat industry, which is already happening. So companies like Shiok Meats and Mosa Meat and Aleph Farms and Beyond Meat, all of these companies are at the forefront of this revolution. And I am sure that if somebody in India, somebody crazy enough to take this on, comes up with something like that, then I'm sure we can bring a change. I mean, I don't see why not. And if you talk about Bakra Eid, people of that religion, a lot of them are turning vegetarian also. So we can basically tap into the potential of that market as well.
As we were talking about like turning vegetarian, so there are some particular nutritional values in meat which we cannot get from veg food sources. So
Yeah,
can you
so I do
elaborate
not
on that?
advocate turning vegetarian. Like for me is, if I cannot get animal protein, like that is a waste
Yeah,
for me.
exactly.
So for what I advocate is, ideally people would turn to in vitro meat, but people are skeptical of in vitro meat because it's made in a lab. So people say कि यार ये lab में बना है, synthetic है, it has chemicals. Dude, like water, the water you drink, the energy drinks you have, the cold drinks you have, the chips you consume, all of them contain chemicals. Water itself is a chemical, right? So I don't see why people are so, so frustrated about synthetic things and things that have chemicals. And the best thing about in vitro meat is it is not GMO. Like you are not genetically modifying an organism. So can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's not GMO. It's not something that is harmful. Okay. I mean, we are still yet to evaluate the safety of it, but for the most part, it is safe for human consumption. So ideally, people would take up in vitro meat. Failing that, the next best alternative is plant-based meat. Plant-based meat, while it will not contain exactly the same amount of nutrients, it will taste mostly the same. And because it's not just one plant, like it's a combination of many plants, many different plant products, many plant parts. So it's a, you can say it's a product that has been created artificially, right? It's not something that occurs naturally.
Yeah. And as long as you're getting the nutrients and it tastes good, and yeah, I don't
Yeah,
see a problem because
to be honest, that's all you need.
as you were saying that everything is chemical. Matlab, everything is basically atoms and molecules.
Yeah,
So
everything is chemical, right? Without chemistry, the world would not exist. The Big Bang would not have happened. Hydrogen, the story, right?
yeah.
And
Okay, I have a question. How you see, if we abolish the traditional meat completely, so it will also affect a lot of employment, especially like in the coastal areas. If we see, so fishermen are there, so they sell, and then like butchers are there. Then also those who breed cows, for example. So the male counterparts are slaughtered, sent to the slaughterhouses. So how you see that we will be able to resolve that problem?
well, I personally do not think that it's a problem that can be resolved, because if you remember during the industrial revolution, many people who were making handicrafts, or people who were doing jobs by hand, they were displaced by skilled people working in factories. So as the focus shifted from villages and farms to factories, right, a lot of people went out of jobs. There was, in fact, even during that time, there were a lot of protests regarding this. I'm not sure if I can bring up an article regarding the same, but you know, with any paradigm shift, there's going to be a loss. Okay. And if you can divert those people, if you can retrain those people into doing other jobs, like working in the plant-based meat industry, or if you can train them as lab assistants so that they can work in the in vitro meat industry, uh, I mean, you can partially resolve the problem, but with any such paradigm shift, there's going to be a loss of jobs. People are going to lose their job. People are going to lose their livelihood, and it's okay. It's a sacrifice that we should be willing to make.
And who can decide the extent of the sacrifice?
Well, I'd say that would be up to the government. That is not my job. That is not your job. That is the government's job. The
I see.
government, the regulatory authorities, those are the people who decide these things.
And also, so extending the same question, so it will also be affecting the economy of the whole country, for example. So, do you think that the in vitro meat or cultured meat, so those products can overcome the economic problems that will be arising?
Well, yeah, definitely, because I mean, those products, they have a potential to tap into markets that we cannot even imagine right now. For example, some vegans or people who don't even eat meat because of religious reasons, because you have to kill an animal to get meat now. Uh, I mean, you can basically convince them to eat in vitro meat. They can give it a try, and I mean, that is just, how it goes, right? You get a taste of the flesh, you get addicted to it. So that's the, I mean, you can. And besides that, if you talk about the investment in these products, in particularly in vitro meat, countries like Singapore, Israel, India, and even China, Japan, these countries are investing very heavily in vitro meat. So the funding right now, it's there, even in India. So I think definitely, I mean, it's going to be beneficial for the economy in general.
Yeah,
Hello.
and so as you were mentioning, so I also like I thought this that so maybe so when even the fishing will be decreased, so maybe a decade or two after now, so maybe illegally fishing will also reduce to a lot extent. So maybe that part also we can see a positive side for this.
Exactly. Now, let me give you a scenario which is right now it might seem far-fetched, but a decade, 2 decades from now, it will become pretty mainstream. So, if you go to countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, right? So you can get all sorts of exotic meats. Like you can get shark meat, you can get stonefish. Okay. Now, while these are, I mean, I'm not denying that they taste good, but these are basically leading to a loss in biodiversity, right? If you could produce that same meat without killing a shark, without killing a stonefish, without killing a puffer fish, you can basically, basically you can save those restaurants as well as uh, the people who want to eat that stuff. But yeah, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs who are involved in catching these animals or killing these animals or raising these animals. But I would say, for the progress of humans, for human evolution, this is the next logical step.
All right. So thank you, Parth Sarthi sir. It was an amazing webinar. We got a lot of insights on other alternatives to traditional meat, and it was great having you with us. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, Riyanika.